Hello, hello, hello there. This is Ash Teeter with Lost Coast Populace hosting the Reading Between the Headlines news review. Coming out of Eureka in Humboldt County, California. The show kind of takes like a single topic and tries to find something local that's, within the subject matter, and then something within the state, and then something maybe within the national, and then something global, kind of chase it all the way up the ladder, just like that. But anyways, we're going to start out here on the LCP website with this article I did back in January, and I was talking about, at the time, there's a omnibus for funding more Ukraine funding. But it's like, what do we know about Ukraine? So we got a picture we put together here with Biden just shoving the U.S. into the shredder there, the chipper, and just dumping that cash on the Ukraine. And that's been going on for over $1 billion now. But we're going to read a little section out of this and then move on to some local stuff here. But if we go down, so this was talking about the price of a house. What it used to be like in the year 2000, medium income was $32,000. Now medium income is $36,000 something, increase of 12.34%. Year 2000 medium cost of a new home was $168,850. Now medium cost of a new house, well, as of January, was $446,196. And that's roughly an increase of 164.26%, like way more than the payroll is increased. But these figures are not surprising, looking at the unsustainable spending practices demonstrated by both Democrats and Rhino Republicans, bringing the U.S. national debt from over $5 trillion in 2000 to over $11 trillion in 2008 to over $31 trillion. Currently 6 times greater than in 2000. When breaking the national debt, it looks to spread out equally, or looking how it spreads out equally to individual taxpayers per debt per taxpayer. It was around $53,000 in the year 2000, just a little over $100,000 in 2008, and now it's almost $250,000 per taxpayer to tackle all our national debt. And this is pretty sure that's with the population increase as well. But there's no single area of government spending that has led to this point, all of them cumulatively. Only what can be called a bipartisan attack on the U.S. fiscal integrity, a widespread competition of who gets the most significant budget for the next bilking of the Commonwealth. From endless wars to foreign aid to rebuild afterwards to widespread bloated bureaucracies funding pointless programs and studies that seem to have risen from the pages of a poorly written sketch comedy. What could be a final nail in the coffin for America as a global superpower recently appeared in the 4,000 pages of this omnibus package passed to keep the clown show of a government running till next September. Well, September's came and passed, but the clown show goes on. The prime example of the pointless spending within this unreadable stack of pork came in the form of another aid package delivered to Ukraine and its television president, Vladimir Zelensky, to the tune of $45 billion, now bringing the total financial aid rendered to Ukraine over the $100 billion mark. I'm sure who knows, it might be closer to the $150 billion by now, but pointless spending by feckless cons. While it gets difficult to discern how much military equipment donated to the Ukraine is itemized monetarily in the total donations, a recent congressional report provides a valuable illustration of exactly how much military equipment was donated in this fashion. An article by the Defense News states that as of November 15th, 2022, the United States Congress had already passed $65.9 billion in Ukraine assistance, being done through 3 separate supplemental funding packages since Russia's invasion of in that February of that year. At that time, Congress was gearing up for more, estimating that an additional $38 billion would be required. Yeah. Yep, it's an ongoing thing, it is. But yeah, we're going to move on to some other stuff here. Got a little video clip and lines up some Rogan. Let's see how loud this sucker is.
We're in the middle of a game. The game they're playing is war and money. I mean, just the amount of money that's been spent in Ukraine, and like, what kind of accounting are you guys doing?
No
accounting. You guys
accounting.
doing good accounting over there? Like, does everybody know where every fucking dollar went, or is it just like, we need to talk about this?
Yeah. Yeah, no account for what's going on over there whatsoever. Nope. It's a real shit show. But anyways, got a John Chiv article talking about the if successful, Rob Arkley's anti-housing initiative could cost the city dearly. And this is pretty much just quoting someone speaking at the Eureka City Council meeting. The following comment is from Solomon Veretta, chairperson of I Like Eureka, housing and Old Town business owner. So they were supposed to have this topic at the city council meeting that was just like yesterday, Tuesday, the 7th of November here, 2023. But they kicked the can down the road till sometime in December, I believe. But anyways, what's her name? Solomon said was, if successful, Rob Arkley's anti-housing initiative would cost the city dearly. Besides stopping much-needed affordable housing, independent fiscal analysis of the initiative found that it would prevent approximately $169.8 million in one-time construction-related spending in Eureka, which in turn would cost approximately 1,000 jobs during the construction phase, with an average earning of $64,000 per job. Local businesses would also suffer from the loss of $7.2 million per year in retail spending in the county from the new residents living in the downtown. What's more is the initiative would likely result in Eureka violating state housing law, resulting in the loss of millions more in grant funds from housing and transportation and related projects. Voters need to be vigilant. The anti-housing initiative has been deceptively framed, itself using poll-tested pro-housing language that masks its real intention. Rob Arkley's anti-housing initiative would stop at least 129 new housing units from Eureka. But what this fails to mention is the whole, what I think the whole point of what Arkley's doing is just because it was poorly thought out housing to begin with. They're removing parking and building housing without additional parking, kind of laying the groundwork for the whole the new normal that the Klaus Schwab group talks about, where you'll own nothing and be happy and you just live in your little apartment there, and you can walk everywhere, or just have everything delivered to you. But that's about where it's going with Old Town Eureka, and also just the point that they're building an old town and not pursuing somewhere else. Why trash the history of Eureka? It's kind of like tearing down all the statues. And why trash the history here, folks? I don't know. But anyways, back to what we started out with the whole Ukraine thing. It's it seems that not the Ukraine situation, but the Israel-Palestine situation has kind of prompted a lot of people on the left to take a kind of, I guess it's brought it back to the surface of their minds. Hey, maybe Democrats were anti-war and war spending at one time. And I mean, they're saying it's, the news pundits, some of them anyways, are saying it's okay to virtue signal this and be against the war. So we're against this one, unlike the Ukraine one. But anyways, an example of this can be seen at recent Humboldt Board of Supervisors meeting, where Mike Wilson, he comes out and speaks out that, against war is a cumulative cost to our just economy and society, and how it relates to homelessness and that issue. So we're gonna go into full screen and play a little snippet of this here.
Said this probably before, but in a country where 50% of the new wealth goes to the 1%, where we spend the next 10 countries under the table in military spending, we create basically what is a structural societal deficit with relationship to our resources. And oftentimes we find ourselves at the local level debating, arguing, sometimes in not so friendly ways about how to spend the money, the limited resources we have, all with our, not necessarily our own individual ideas, but with a variety of ideas with relationship to strategies on how to address something that we can't even address with the amount of resources that we've got. And it's systemic. And so it sometimes really does feel overwhelming from a perspective of trying to be solution oriented, to try and get to those places, and knowing that we do have some successes in these spaces, but then you walk outside the door of that place, wherever it may be, where it's like maybe it's one of our home key projects, or maybe it's the safe parking program that we have in Arcata, and it's still there. But with that, I do want to say there has been some success here. We've had a lot of units being put into place where people are actually living in Arcata and Eureka, more specifically, in other places. And I will even shout out to our.
But yeah, I see what he was getting at to begin with. Just, that, hey, our country spends a lot on these conflicts around the world, and that has an effect on the money that can be spent on just the well-being of the people within our county, other counties, just in general there. But that sentiment that carried on in the Eureka City Council through, and some of the people, we'll just play a little clip from one person here that resonates the monetary part of it, and most of it was just really just defending Palestine, saying that we're not supporting Hamas, and that's the way they're, but Israel's just out of control here, and yeah, it's definitely a mess over there, because Hamas is more or less the government in power in Palestine. So you give aid to Palestine, and Hamas, gets their cut, however much they decide to take, pretty much, and then the rest goes to the people. So it's definitely a big mess over there. But we'll see what she has to say real quick about the financial impacts here.
Every time we met to work on a resolution, we had to update the death toll, to update the number of displaced people. I cannot express how upset, the word upset doesn't even do any justice, is like the biggest underwhelming word ever, how upset I am that my tax dollars are being used to fund a war, and that my tax dollars have been used to fund any war, any violence, and any perpetuation of colonial violence. We are presenting something safe, something that condemns the most recent violence, and something that is far from radical. What you see in front of you is a far more gentle version than what we originally wrote, and honestly the bare minimum. Community consensus is important, and a resolution passed by a city must be supported by as much as the city as possible, and I understand that, but I want more.
Yeah, so that's what this group of people showed up, is they wanted a resolution passed by the city council, full well knowing that it has no real impact, just to try to be part of like a grassroots nationwide, ceasefire in Palestine only, but not. Later in the meeting, I threw in something about like, hey, if we're going to do that, if we're going to pass a resolution, you might as well throw Ukraine in there too. Let's just stop funding all these pointless wars, and kind of pay attention to all the bad stuff that it's going on here. And we could definitely use some infrastructure work, some a little more vetting down at the southern border. But anyways, we're going to move on to the little headline Humboldt. And this, they had like a actual person who is Palestinian on there. So I thought I would just play a little clip from that, because she was talking about how she's like discriminated against just for, having her views on Palestine, being Palestinian. And it kind of reminded me of how, like, how the far right, as they call, anybody right of center, is being treated. If you have these certain views, then you're racist, you're horrible, you're a grandma killer. But anyways, we'll play a little clip from her real quick, just to see and I doubt she sees the parallel, but I can see the parallel there.
Have you encountered any anger from anybody or any kind of negative reaction from folks?
Absolutely. Yeah, of course, just all the things you would expect. I get called anti-Semitic because I don't want my people to be brutalized under a racist regime. I get called a terrorist supporter, I get called a rapist, all these horrible things because I don't want Palestinians to be massacred. So it's basically what you would expect, just a lot of resistance and a lot of just kind of this propaganda that immediately conflates being pro-Palestinian human rights with being anti-Semitic, which is...
Yeah, just kind of like, some other people might have experienced being, Republican or libertarian, or, anything that's not, far left progressive. You might have experienced some kind of treatment like that recently. But anyways, gonna move on to something else here. It's a new help for South Bay College students experiencing homelessness, and they have a little video clip. We'll see if it'll play without being too loud on us.
Details make the holidays during the Genesis.
Are you going to play?
200,000 young people under the age of 18 are experiencing homelessness in California. Advocates say California has by far the largest number of homeless youth in the entire nation, and many of them are students. KTVU's Mark Sayer takes a look at one effort to call attention to and help solve the problem.
Well, I was born into homelessness. And so I tell so many people, we don't get to choose where we were born. Unfortunately, I was born into a household with a single mother who was struggling.
David Baker has experienced housing insecurity and homelessness for his entire life until he turned the corner when he left home at 16 years old. Baker says he feels his experience built self-sufficiency and resiliency.
I can't say that's a story for most. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people from where I'm from, my neighborhood, my area, etc. Those who look just like me, they missed out. And they're lost in the wind.
Now, Baker and his friend Justin Lipford are calling attention to the issue of homeless youth by walking, biking, and taking public transit from San Diego through the Bay Area all the way to Sacramento. Both are affiliated with the YMCA of San Diego, and during a stop in San Jose, say it is a problem that is often under-acknowledged.
The whole issue behind the Solidarity Journey is to uplift and bring attention and resources to the fact that throughout our state, every night, young people are on the streets experiencing homelessness, trying to survive.
The Bill Wilson Center here in downtown San Jose provides transitional housing for homeless youth, but it also is an entry point for information and resources, such as housing and food assistance.
And here in San Jose, we have the highest per capita youth homelessness in the country. I mean, these are terrible things to be known for. So clearly, it is a crisis that our young people are facing.
Yeah. But it's not only, the young people that California is known for.
Folks,
let's see.
We want to prevent from falling into chronic homelessness.
It's also the veterans here. We'll see that in a article that's coming up in a second. But we got another little video clip here. This is off subject, but this is Rand Paul putting forward an amendment to audit the Federal Reserve. So we'll take that back to the full screen and play that sucker.
The Federal Reserve effectively controls the economy, but without scrutiny. No other institution has so much unchecked power. The Fed demonstrated its unlimited authority during the pandemic. The Fed printed money, purchased government-backed securities, and doled out massive amounts of money to favored industries. The result added almost $5 trillion to the Fed's balance sheet, the largest in our history. When Dodd-Frank ordered a limited, one-time audit of Fed actions, the Government Accountability Office uncovered that during the financial crisis, the Fed doled out over $16 trillion to domestic and foreign banks. This kind of inflationary bailout should not be kept secret from the public. While the Fed's easy money policies make the rich richer, the side effect is high inflation. As Milton Friedman famously explained, inflation is taxation without legislation. Congress cannot control the Fed's actions, but Fed actions can cost Americans dearly. Just ask any parent who has to feed his or her family during historically high inflation rates. My amendment would require a full audit of the Fed within 1 year. It is time for the Federal Reserve to operate in a manner that is transparent and accountable to the taxpayers. I ask for a yes vote.
Yeah, and just like Rand and his father, Ron, they've always been pushing hard to get that audit and get accountability for the Fed because it's more or less just an international banking cartel. So, yeah, got to do something about that, crowd. Another reaction to this economy driven by relentless, unending war, and I guess just unhinged spending in general. But minimum wages rates for all Hayward businesses set to rise by January 2024. Wages are set to increase for workers across all types of business and industry in Hayward on January 1st, 2024. The city announced Monday. Large employees are subject to a $16.90 per hour minimum wage beginning in January, up from $16.34, and large employers are defined as businesses with 26 or more full-time workers. Small employers, on the other hand, are subject to $16 an hour minimum wage per state law beginning of 2024 from $15.50. But anyways, on to the next one here. This is what I was talking about with the, said that a record number of college students were homeless in the previous video that we watched. And this here talks about the record number of homeless veterans also in California. Maybe it's just the record number, of homeless people in general in California that seems to be the trend. It says 1/3 of homeless veterans live in California. Here's Newsom's new approach to help them. And we go all the way down to the bottom here. We can see what Newsom's brilliant idea is here. It's, Newsom's new strategy in the mental health bond advocates say should help those most in need. The California Department of Veterans Affairs estimates that half of the state's unhoused veterans suffer from some kind of behavioral health issue. The money in the bond would go to the state's Department of Housing and Community Development, which would work with CalVet to focus specifically on housing veterans experiencing behavioral health challenges, said Assembly member Jackie Irwin. The Thousand Oaks Democrat who wrote the bill that would ultimately put the bond on the ballot. Studies have shown veterans are overrepresented in the nation's homeless population. They may experience personal challenges such as post-traumatic stress disorders or other mental health issues, as well as disabilities related to military service. Transitioning from that very specific culture and society to civilian life is a lifelong process, said Amy Fairweather, Director of Policy and of the veterans advocacy group Swords of Plowshares. If you do have any physical or mental disabilities, dealing with those and trying to re-enter civilian life can be very difficult. And I don't doubt that in the least bit, but I wonder how much the solution is going to be. I mean, recently we did an article about the harm reduction vending machines popping up at the local VA here in Eureka, and I guess it's a statewide thing. And there was also stories about them just popping up at apartment buildings in down in San Francisco, I believe. So I wonder if that'd be something if they're working on housing veterans. Would they be putting them in new apartment buildings with these harm reduction machines? Just in that'll help them get it straight. Just get them all the drug paraphernalia right there in front of them. But here's another little thing we found is interesting. This is down in a new guerrilla street art by Sabo in Los Angeles. This is Gavin Newsom, the mask-wearing lizard king of California. And yeah, that's about right there. I mean, he's almost human, just about. That's what they say anyways. But anyways, just why are so many Americans leaving California and New York? Meet the households who fled sky-high rents and rocketing crime in America's major metros and vow they will never return. So we've got, let's see, left Idaho, or Verted and Idaho left California amid rising costs and crime. Yep. So it says, U.S. Census Bureau data out of this month showed that California was the state that lost the most residents last year, followed by New York. In 2022, California recorded the net loss of 341,866 people compared to 244,137 for the Empire State. The states combined lost a total of 1.4 million residents last year, with many moving to Florida and Texas. Vered and her husband Ido, 59, stayed in Palo Alto until their children, who are now 21 and 23, had finished high school, before looking for a way to get out of California. While Palo Alto, considered one of the birthplaces of Silicon Valley, may be expensive even by California standards, living costs are elevated across the state. And that's true here in Humboldt County as well. According to the real estate company Zillow, the average home in the Golden State is valued at $747,352, with the median price home in various California cities crossing the $1 million mark. The couple's first stop in July 2021 was Bethesda, Maryland, where they stayed for a year and a half. Then Ido, managing director of a startup accelerator, received a job offer which led them to Memphis, Tennessee. Luckily, Vered, founder of a food blog, Healthy Recipes, was able to work from anywhere, so the couple moved in January of this year to a suburb just outside of the city. At first, it was hard. It was very suburban, and the pace of life is very slow, but gradually, they fell in love with it. And there are so many good things, they said. Now, they said they could never imagine going back to the West Coast. And my wife has some, like her brother, they also moved to Tennessee, him and his wife, and much the same. They were living in Sacramento, and just, yeah, a job brought them there, and they got good deal on a house, and just nothing but good things to say about the move. So it's not uncommon, not at all. Not even for billionaires like Amazon's Jeff Bezos, moving out of, I think he's up in Washington or something, but now he moved to Florida. So yeah, I mean, better tax rates, better quality of life, just abandoning the left coast. It's pretty amazing here, But yeah, it's all this leads to, even on a national thing, Starbucks increases its hourly wages and adds other benefits for non-union workers. Oh, so if you're not part of a union, then they'll hook you up. Like, yeah, don't be part of that union game here. We'll play a little bit of the video here if we can.
Starbucks Starbucks workers at the largest Starbucks in our region are now on strike. This is at the flagship Starbucks Roastery on Pike Street in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood. The workers say they will be on strike through Monday. All this happening during Pride weekend. It's part of a nationwide strike over Pride decor, apparently. Workers claim the company is taking down Pride decorations at dozens of stores across the country. But Starbucks have already come out to say that is not true and it's misinformation. Workers say it's not happening at the local store that unionized last year, but they still say they want to show solidarity.
Being a union means that we stand together, we stand with each other in solidarity across our store, across the region, across the country. So we want to send the message that we are standing all together and that they won't get away with unfair practices.
Workers are also demanding that Starbucks bargain with them for a fair contract and higher wages. We reached out to Starbucks in a statement. It says in part, we unwaveringly support the LGBTQ plus community. There has been no change to any policy on this matter, and we continue to encourage our store leaders to celebrate with their communities, including for Pride Month. We remain deeply concerned by false information being spread about our inclusive store environments, our company culture, and the benefits we offer our partners.
So yeah, let's see if we got anything that I highlighted here. Might have just been the video. Yeah, I think it's just a video we're watching. Yep. Yeah, don't want that. Sorry about the loud sound there. But yeah. Yeah, what to do about the strikes. But anyway, we've got another little video clip, this time from Rand's father, Ron Paul, also talking about free markets and the economy.
This is not a consequence of free markets. What's happening is the transfer of wealth from the middle class to the wealthy. This comes about because of the monetary system that we have. When you inflate the currency or destroy a currency, the middle class gets wiped out. So people get to use the money first, which is created by the Federal Reserve System, benefit. So the money gravitates to the banks and to Wall Street. So that's why you have more billionaires than ever before. Today, this country is in the middle of a recession.
Yeah, more billionaires than ever before, just from our financial policies and the pretty much the Federal Reserve once again at the heart of this, and the whole print and spend without getting approval from the public on what you're spending all this money on. We also have, can you afford a starter home? Fascinating study shows blueprint of the average U.S. property for the first time buyers and cities and the best deals. The average U.S. starter home would have been built in 1969 and boast a yard measuring 6,591 square feet. Starter homes commonly refer to modestly sized properties that are affordable for first-time buyers and those on lower incomes. The most affordable starter homes are found in smaller cities that are not major coastal hubs, primarily in the Midwest and South. Highlight, yeah. In Louisville, Kentucky, which is ranked 4th, you can buy a 1267 square foot property for $199,000. The analysis revealed. 1,200 square foot starter home in Baltimore, Maryland, meanwhile, would set you back around $200,000. The study also ranked Indianapolis, Indiana, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Cincinnati, Ohio, and Oklahoma City among the top 10 cities with the most affordable starter homes. San Antonio rounded off the list. The Texan city boasts homes with some of the largest square footage for the starter homes, where the first-time buyers could secure 1,400 square feet property for just under $250,000. By comparison, the most expensive cities to buy a starter home are all based in California. Surprise, surprise, surprise. In San Francisco, a unit measuring 1,100 or so square feet would set a buyer back almost $1 million. That's pretty extreme there. In San Jose, 1,200 or so square foot property costs pretty close to $1 million too. While in San Diego, an 1,100 or so square foot unit attracts almost $800,000 price tag. In LA, the figure is around around $800,000 for 1,100 or so square feet. So it's pretty steep. I mean, you got to be making some coin to be able to afford that kind of thing. We got another one here if it's gonna load for us. Just talking about credit card interest rates break the 30% ceiling. StoreCard is now offering 33% interest as experts warn it's the highest on record. Well, I don't know if this one's going to respond, but from what I remember browsing through it earlier, it was just that pretty much if you had a good credit score, you could still get cards for like a 22% APR, but it's just if you don't have good credit, then it's like 33% and you just get murdered. But we got another short little Facebook clip just about the kind of corporate monopoly you see on media and just so many things here.
Remember when Julian's launched tweeted this chart? It showed how many members of the media belong to the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderberg Group, and the Council on Foreign Relations. And these aren't just members of the media, these are the CEOs that consider that six corporations control everything we see on television. So ABC, ESPN, Hulu, all owned by Disney, which is why these companies push the same agenda. Because if Stephen A. Shill didn't publicly attack Kyrie Irving for not going along with the agenda, he'd lose his precious $8 million from Disney. Then you have the Congressional Church Committee from the 1970s. The CIA admitted to spending billions of dollars adjusted for inflation, bribing media. That's what my children's book, Operation Mockingbird, is about. You also have 3 investment firms, Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street, that own a large percentage. For example, 17% of Disney corporate mainstream media is controlled from the top down. Hollywood.
Yeah. Yep, these corporations that are pretty much, developed from the banking cartels of old, that's what they've evolved into. They pretty much got their fingers and everything just in a nice kind of tight little web, it looks like. It's pretty sad. Makes the little guy feel a little bit trapped down here, huh? We got another one about Social Security. It says America's Social Security backlog applications take 100 days longer to be decided than 2019, leaving more than 1 million without payments. The SSA has a backlog of more than 1 million disability benefits claims. On average, an initial decision is taking the SSA around 7 months to make SSA. The SSA officials are considering more funding and eliminating reconsiderations. There's one example down here. It says, when a claimant is denied their initial request, they are able to apply for a reconsideration. The claimant filed his claim in July 2021. He was denied initially and again on reconsideration. This took 645 days, 547 of which were reconsideration, said Camp. Multiple members of the committee noted that more than 90% of reconsidered findings are the same, yet come after months of delay. Once a request for reconsideration is rejected, applicants must then go to a judge. The reconsideration findings were identical, said Camp. He filed a request for a hearing by a judge this May. He was scheduled for a hearing, but after his claim had been pending for 832 days, his hearing should have been last week, but there was no point. He died earlier this month after day 825 of his claim. He died from the condition that he applied with that went untreated. He sought help from Social Security with 825 days to live, and Social Security wasted more than 500 days on reconsideration. He could not live long enough to outlast Social Security's capacity to delay. They've got a little video on that here too. We'll play.
Morning again. For the first time in history, more than 1 million people are waiting on Social Security Administration to process their initial disability claim. Let me say that again. That's 1 million people are now waiting. On average, claims are taking 220 days to be decided. That's more than 100 days longer than it was in 2019, and more than 150 days longer than the Social Security Administration, what it defines as a minimum level of performance. The real world consequences for these individuals who are unable to work and wait for their disability decision is devastating. Many of these families and many of these individuals really get hurt by these delays.
In addition to reconsideration, there are other policies that require immediate attention, corrections that would add efficiency and savings right now. In August, Social Security suddenly stopped accepting faxed applications. We'd like to see Social Security modernized, so we were shocked that they would leap that far backward. There is no reason not to honor a faxed application. Now, claimants and representatives fax to mark the date, then mail what we faxed, then mail it again until Social Security acknowledges the mail. This adds an absurd delay to claims, and it must be corrected. The front line of communication with claimants is the representative's office. Yet when we call and manage to get through, we're only allowed to get an update on one case at a time. We want to help Social Security manage communications with claimants, and our role is to speed up the process, but Social Security imposes barriers. Social Security should allow representatives to verify entry on a claim electronically and stop capping our attempts to check online status at 10 cases. A recent rule change introduced a new problem and a new slowdown for veterans. Social Security now ignores VA decisions. A 100% disabled veteran is now less likely to be found disabled in Social Security's process than someone who hasn't served. This must be stopped immediately. Electronic signatures are safe and secure, and it's unnecessary to call to verify them. When Social Security gets an electronic signature, they make the staff call claimants to verify. This means personnel are calling out when they could be handling calls coming in. We're doing something else productive, and it slows the process. Social Security should provide us with the same data available to claimants in their My Social Security accounts. We're ready to help a claimant speed up the process and provide what's needed, but often can't at the early stages. Finally, Social Security must stop using the dot. Pneumatic tube operators have been replaced by email. Addressers have been replaced by the printer. Recently, claimants in Savannah, Wichita, and Flint have all been turned down, citing these long-gone jobs. This happens every day in every district.
Yeah, that is just sad. Sad to hear that veterans take a lower priority than your everyday American civilian who are disabled and seeking help through that avenue. That is just tragic to hear. People that have fought and lost so much, in doing so for this country. But we also have this here. Hamas leaders rake in billions as they condemn Palestinians to war in Gaza. This is the leaders of the Palestinian terrorist group known as Hamas have become multi-billionaires over the past 2 decades as they launch their wars in Gaza from a safe distance in Qatar, Turkey, and condemn their own people to poverty and misery. According to the Israeli embassy to the U.S., the leaders of Hamas, an acronym for Islamic Resistance Movement, line their pockets with the money while Gazans depend on international assistance and must suffer Hamas's periodic war against Israel. Let's see. In the years since taking control, the group's leaders have profited off the misery of the Gazan people. According to the German news outlet Bild, there are 4 Hamas officials who have grown particularly wealthy over the last few years, or over the years. The trio of Abu Marzouk, Khalad Marshall and Ishmael Hinyek, or Hinye, as well as the fourth named Yunus Kaushe. German tabloid Bild reported that Hanye often jets between Tehran, Istanbul, Moscow, and Cairo on his own private jet. Who does that sound like? WF kind of people, or are politicians too? I guess they're kind of profiting off something too to be flying around in private jets. But anyways, meeting with leaders from friendly nations, and two of his sons, Maz and Abdel Salam, are often seen in Instagram posts lounging on hotel beds in Istanbul and Doha. The Biden administration is trying to pressure Israel to pause its war against Hamas, claiming that the need for more humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip, aid that amounts to small fractions of the Hamas leaders' collective wealth. And yeah, but with Biden sending this aid to Gaza, how much of the aid package will go to these Hamas elites, flying around and just having fun on their share, their cut. I guess they got their own. They are the big guys of their own little corner of the world there. Just like Biden is the big guy here in the U.S. and gets his cut of all the stuff that we'll talk about in just a second here. But I got a little Tucker insight on the Israel-Palestine thing.
The new Speaker of the House comes in, and the first thing he does is issue a statement on behalf of a foreign country. That's the most important thing. I'm not even against the statement, but I'm just saying, what bigger statement does that make?
It's him, Mikey Johnson?
Yeah.
And he's the Speaker? He is? Praise God. Damn, Mikey.
He's a nice guy, and I'm not against him, but I'm just saying, if you think the welfare of another country is the most important thing for you as one of the leaders of our country, third in line to the presidency, you have lost the thread, son. It's not. Nothing is more important for the leaders of our country than our country and how its 350 million people are doing. So I was enraged by that. And people go, are you for Hamas? Of course I'm not for Hamas at all. I'm for America, actually. I shouldn't even have to answer that question. Are you for Israel or Hamas? I mean, obviously I'm for Israel over Hamas, but that's irrelevant. I'm for America. And no one even asked that. And I feel deep resentment about that the concerns of this country are no concern.
Right. It feels like our concerns don't even fucking matter.
They don't matter.
That's why it makes you wonder, are we just a shell company for Israel? Are we just a shell company for China? Or where are we anymore? Are we just...
Well, there are a lot of people who live here who really like it here.
Yeah, I love it here.
Well, I know you do, but I'm just saying, it doesn't have to be this way. The new Speaker of the House comes in, and the first thing he does...
Yeah, it doesn't have to be this way. That is for sure. We've got this one here. The U.S. House panel subpoenas Hunter and James Biden as impeachment inquiry heats up. It says the Washington Sputnik. This is the U.S. House Oversight Company announced Wednesday that Chairman James Comer issued subpoenas for Hunter and James Biden, Rob Walker, and others to appear for their interviews as part of the investigation for the Biden family's business dealings. Let's see here. Got something highlighted maybe somewhere here. Anyways, yeah, I think so. The House Committee on Oversight and Accountability, James Comer, today issued subpoenas to President Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, James Biden, and other Biden family associates. The Kentucky lawmaker plans to send additional subpoenas and transcribed interview requests later this week. The House Oversight Committee has followed the money and built a record of evidence revealing how Joe Biden knew, was involved, and benefited from his family's influence peddling schemes, Comer said. Now the House Oversight Committee is going to bring in members of the Biden family and their associates to question them on this record of evidence. In September, Comer had issued subpoenas for Hunter and James Biden, seeking to obtain their personal and business records. So it says earlier this week, Comer said that Joe Biden received a personal check for $40,000 in allegedly laundering money from China involving Hunter Biden's companies. The latest comes after a top prosecutor in the Hunter Biden case told the House Judiciary Committee during a closed-door meeting on Tuesday that politics did not play a factor in filing charges against Hunter Biden. The meeting marked the first time a special counsel answered questions during an active probe before congressional lawmakers. Hunter Biden pleaded not guilty in October to 3 charges related to possession of a firearm while he was under the influence of illicit drugs. The charges date back to the gun forms from 2018. And they were trying to get like everything else thrown out with that case too. It's like, well, I'll plead to something here, and then you just won't charge me with anything else, right? And luckily the judge, kind of saw through that smoke screen. It's like, no, we're not going to do that. No, that's just not going to happen. But anyways, we're going to move over and kind of discuss the general sentiments from within this topic, and then we'll go and play one last little video before we close this segment out here. But anyways, so the war in Palestine and Israel seems to be a final straw for some, leading to many on the left turning on Biden. Like in one of the city council meetings, I actually heard one of the people refer to it as the Biden regime, something that, until just recently, you only heard people on the, leaning a little more to the right, calling it the Biden regime. It does make you wonder why the war in Ukraine didn't accomplish the same thing, with how much money was being shoveled on that hot mess. Maybe the media pundits weren't shining the virtue signal bright enough in the night sky on the Ukraine situation as they have been on Palestine. I heard someone talking recently on one podcast or another discussing how war in the U.S. used to only be funded by bonds. That way, if the people didn't buy the bonds, then there just wasn't a war, or at least a well-funded one. Now the ability to print and spend at will, for the most part, has become constant for the past couple decades, minus a few years with Trump. While war might have been, a good thing to boost the economy when people were loving the petrodollar, now the resurgence of many gold-backed currencies around the world are making it seemingly, less profitable to where, if we can't get people to deal in our currency, then it's kind of a lose-lose situation. The combined print and spend from COVID and the Ukraine ordeal has given inflation an ample wingspan to spread and soar to new heights. Some people don't even get it. They just think, hey, my house is going up in value, instead of, hey, this dollar, it's just not worth shit anymore. Whispers, not whiskers, of big bank failures have been coming in more substantial numbers, floating around with the sentiment that local or small banks will fare better than the big banks just because they're not as reckless with how they invest money and, the people trust them to hold. Or big banks, they're just, they'll do anything with your money. They do not care. But it seems we might be close to a precipice. So we're going to switch over to a video here with Glenn Beck asking if the US dollar is healthy, or is it currently experiencing a dangerous decline like we've been discussing this whole segment here. Carol Roth, a financial expert and author of an upcoming book, You Will Own Nothing, joins Glenn to explain life as you know it in America and how it will be completely different. But we will switch over to that here.
Oh yeah. So somebody asked me the other day, when do you think this? And I said, nobody can predict this. I mean, this could literally happen. Today's Thursday. Monday, you could wake up and the banks would all be closed, and we would be in a dire situation because I don't know. We went to Russia went to war with Russia overnight. Any big shock could trigger this. And we might have big shocks that come and go, and we're just kind of coasting there. We have no idea. But what people have to really understand is when it happens, life as you know it in America is completely different, correct?
Yeah, I think I think we've talked about this before, sort of coming to grips with the reality. You don't want to be in that situation and just be processing that information if and when it happens. You want to be prepared for it and say, okay, I've gotten past the shock already. I've kind of expected this day might come. And hey, I have a plan in place because I know that there's going to be chaos. You started the segment with Bretton Woods. Once that Bretton Woods agreement was signed, it was something like 15 years that it took to change out the global financial order in a way that everything was sort of smoothly operating and the U.S. was fully in that pole position. It didn't just happen one day to the next. And there is chaos in these transition periods. And sometimes there are transition periods before there's a wholesale change. So you may have these kind of interim periods of chaos. And certainly we've seen that domestically in things like with the banking crises and the Great Recession financial crisis and the like. But there could be sort of an international chaotic period. And that's why you really do need to have the diversification in your portfolio, as well as that personal plan. What are you doing in your personal life and in your community to make sure if something goes awry and there is this chaos, what are you going to do to make it through that period? Because again, it doesn't mean the dollar is going away. It doesn't mean that the entire U.S. economy collapses forever. It just means that the stakes are shifting and everybody is telegraphing this. This is one thing I noted in your upcoming book, Dark Future. I talked about also in You Will Own Nothing, is that the White House has telegraphed this. Joe Biden has said there is a new world order coming, and quote unquote, we have to lead it. Now, of course, he was talking to elite business people, so I'm assuming that means him and his friends. But this is not like a conspiracy at all. This is, you type in Joe Biden, New World Order into Google, you will get tons of search results. They all know this is coming.
And you will get from that same speech, as I have it in my book, you take the phrases that are in his speech, you type them out, and you have Western leaders and World Economic Forum leaders using exactly the same verbiage. So they're all aware of something, but you're not, because...
Yeah. It's not new, the use of the whole New World Order thing. Bush did it, Clinton did it. It's definitely not a new thing. Anyways, we are going to call it good for this little segment here, and we will see you all next week here. Yeah. Adios.